Okay, good evening. We are live. We are live right now on three platforms. We are live on Facebook. We are live on LinkedIn, and we are live on YouTube. Welcome everybody. As usual, my name is Emeka Nobis. It's obvious that's what my name is, and I am glad to bring this conversation again your way. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Today we are going to be looking at something very topical: how to raise successful teenagers. I mean, we look around what's happening around in our society, and we see a lot of stupid things happening. I came in from Makodi some days back, and while I was riding from Enugu to Port Harcourt, had a story about teenagers. I mean, these boys that we call Yahoo boys, and they were riding in a Mercedes CLK, which is usually what they ride around, baby boy as they call it. And they were, I don't know, they were racing somewhere. When you see these guys riding on the highway, you think that a car ought to be a plane. Maybe they want the plane to fly. And they were about to round the bend, and they didn't even brake to round the bend. And then they smashed into a truck
Wow.
instantly. I don't know how many of them died on the spot, but the car was compressed. The truck, they didn't have the driver of the truck, they didn't have any dent on him. The truck had some dents, but the CLK was compressed fully, and it was mangled flesh and brains and bones, and they died instantly on the spot. I don't know, but usually for those guys, I've been in Abraka before, and I saw them in the resort where I was staying at the time. They come around with their white CLK, and when they are riding around in the resort, you see the young girl in front, her leg on the dashboard, and then they are cruising, enjoying life. Sometimes you find them with bottles, guzzling alcohol while they are riding their cars. And that boils down to say that when you raise a child irresponsibly, the child will definitely become responsible. On this conversation this evening, we're looking at successful teenagers, how to raise successful teenagers. I mean, I'm happy when I get back home and I see my son, the kind of conversation we have. I look at him and I see how he's growing. Yeah, sometimes I have some fear. Like maybe if this guy goes out now and meets some bad boys and then he becomes. But so far, my son has not given us issues. He's 10 years old and we are doing all we can do to raise them to become absolutely responsible kids. It's such a tough thing for a lot of individuals to raise teenagers. I can tell you for a fact the kind of questions they're asking. I mean, the kind of questions they're asking me at home. If I were not intelligent, I don't know how I would have been answering them. Crazy stuff that they ask, crazy stuff. And now they're looking for affection, they're looking for acceptance, they're looking for someone who can listen to them. And I'm providing all that for my kids, especially my son. So, but today we are looking at how to raise successful teenagers. Teenagers are not just boys alone, but girls. And I have with me tonight or this evening for the next 30 minutes to 35 minutes, I have with me Chiedozie. Chiedozie is an amazing guy. I've known him for a long time, and he has carved a niche for himself. I mean, we're in a society where most of us, we are talking about money, money. For me, I talk about money, marketing, and making money. But this man says he wants to talk about teenagers. He wants to focus on teenagers and raising them. How does he make money, Seth? I don't know. But that means that he is finding lots of fulfillment, raising teenagers. And as he's doing that, trust me, the opportunities to be blessed financially and also to be fulfilled doing what he's doing them. All right. So if you're joining us, let's know where you're joining us from. Let's know in the comment section. Then invite your friends, invite those who are mothers, parents, teachers. Tonight, we are going to be looking at how to raise successful teenagers by building a strong foundation. Okay, so at this point in time, please go ahead and share the live stream. Let a lot more individuals enjoy this conversation so together we can raise a very beautiful society for ourselves. I mean, we have heard what happened to Mubad riding from Enugu. The driver was just raking. Oh, why did he go to join bad boys? Who tell him make he go join bad boys? Now he don't die. A lot of people in the car were like, I mean, well, there's some form of influence that could happen when you actually roll with the wrong crowd, and success can become something else. And so, Please invite your friends, tag them in the comment section. So now I can see Charles Noble from River State. I can see Favy Emerald, Kelechi Mba, Mary Jerry. I can see June Chino. Please invite your friends, invite your mothers and fathers and your counterparts, your friends. Let them come join in this great conversation. So right now I'm going to introduce Chedoze and I'm going to step away from the screen and let him do his talk for the next 30 to 35 minutes. He's got his slides ready and I know he's going to deliver excellently as usual. All right, Chedoze, over to you. Introduce yourself, tell us your journey, and go ahead to teach us how we can raise successful teenagers. Thank you so much for being part of this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am so grateful to be here, and it's an honor to connect on Emeka Novice's platform. It's been a great time. I've known Emeka for a long while, and I was just laughing backstage when he was asking, "Okay, how does he make money?" Because I work in the teens coaching industry, so to speak, and Emeka has been quite instrumental to that journey for me because tweaking how to make money when you're trying to do something that is um, as as maybe unusual as coaching teenagers. It's pretty much comes across as something that everybody should do for free. But no, raising teenagers, if you're going to raise successful teenagers, you have to be willing to commit your time and your resources. But like that was just to mention that Emeka Nobis has been very instrumental in, my journey as a teens coach. Of course, those who are familiar with my work here, I work in the intentional parenting community. So there is a Wendy logo somewhere, and it was Emeka Nobis who made that connection, and kind of like that's how the thing kept building like that. So thank you very much, Coach Emeka. Thank you for having me on your platform, and thank you for all the work that you do for helping us see how to convert whatever it is that we're doing to business, to making money while we're trying to make impact. It's such an honor to be here, and I welcome everybody that is joining live. And if you get opportunity to catch this as a replay, I see you too. You're probably going to have to drop a comment somewhere and tell us that you are catching a replay. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation. Emeka has laid quite a robust background on the subject of raising successful teenagers and why it is necessary. So I don't think I want to belabor that part of the topic as why is it necessary? Why do you want to pay attention to some of the building blocks, some of the most important critical points when it comes to raising the 21st century teenager? You also may not need me to remind you that today's teenager is different from the teenager you were if you were a parent. If you are a parent, today's teenager, the teenager you are raising, is different from the one that you were in your time as a teenager. So you don't need me to remind you of that conversation. But if you do, here is me telling you that the times are different. The challenges, uh, every generation is going to face their own kind of unique, peculiar challenges. And this generation is having their own, and it is the job of every well meaning parent. Like, I think that those who are listening to me today, it is our job, your job, and everybody's job to try and see how we can, as much as possible, provide support, provide guidance for the young people so that they can thrive in their time, so that they can succeed in their time. So that is the work that I do. I work with teenagers. I'm a teens coach. I write. I'm an author. So I have a number of self-help, personal development materials for young people. I work with parents and helping them to, as a support, as a partner in raising kings and raising successful young people who are not just growing up by default, but are able to thrive. They have what it takes to make meaningful contribution in their time as young people. Because I believe strongly that one of the critical things that is missing in the conversation around raising young people in this part of the world is the fact that we start out very late. We start out very late. So by the time responsibility is thrust on an individual, you are almost already an adult. And for many persons, you are already an adult. So some of the things you were supposed to have learned as a young person, nobody really cared. Nobody really thought they were important. And then at that stage, it becomes like an emergency. There's this conversation we're having somewhere where somebody said that what happens with us in raising children is we hold back young people from doing all the things they were supposed to do when they were young. And then by the time they arrive without skill at adulthood, we are amazed, we are surprised at why this person is so dysfunctional, why they cannot fit into a normal, healthy society. So that pretty much explains some of the reasons why this conversation is important tonight. And I'll try to manage the time that I have and see how much I can delve into the topic. And let me see if my slide is rolling. Yeah. So, who is a successful teenager? I came up with this definition for a successful teenager, and I like to say that a successful teen is that young person who is self aware. They have a profound sense of self awareness, leading them to be able to develop a healthy sense of confidence, a healthy sense of responsibility. And that young person is also able to build relationships within the family, but not just in the family, with their peers and with other members of the community. And finally, that young person is able to find their place. They are able to find a place where they can make their own contribution, make their own expression in the framework of society. So I hope this is not very ambiguous because I want to always put this in perspective, the definition of a successful teenager, because different parts of society and different human beings have their own definitions for success, which is also a critical component of the conversation when we talk about raising successful teenager is you have to scrutinize carefully what your definition of success is. Some persons will define success as finances, like Emeka was saying in the background he laid. When young people don't mind what they do to get money, then they also do not mind what they do to spend the money. So they can buy a GLK, even if that was the only money in their bank account. And then they can run around the street and live whatever kind of life. And then, of course, in the sad story that we just heard, end up the way that they ended up. So you want to put in perspective what your definition for success is from the very beginning, whether it is about money, whether it is about status, whether it is about academic qualifications, whether it is about whatever it is that you want to define success for yourself. That is a very foundational point where to begin in, so where to begin at. So for me, this definition is the basis for the conversation we're going to have. Raising a young person who is self-aware, who has a healthy sense of confidence and responsibility, and then they are able to build relationship across different spheres of their lives, eventually being able to find their place in the world. Okay, so let's go on. This is an overview of what the conversation is all about. But of course, we don't have the time to get into all of this. I just needed to show you. There are supposed to be about 8 of them, but on the screen you have 6. The issue about identity, that's where I'm going to stay for the rest of my time this evening. But for an overview, if you're looking for the building blocks for raising a successful young person, you want to pay attention to the question about identity. I'm going to come back there in a moment. But number 2 is about mission and purpose. If you have a young person who does not have a sense of mission, who does not have a vision for their life, then that person is probably going to fit into the kind of description that the Nobis gave us just before we started. That person is going to do stuff however they like it, wherever they like it, live wherever they. There's a movie I like to always make reference to when I talk to teenagers and young people. It's an animation, The Lion King. And in that story, if you remember Simba and all of the other characters in that movie, but the key character, the star guy there was Simba. When he lost his identity, And when he lost his, thank you very much, Phoebe. Thank you for the feedback. I see you. When Simba lost his identity, and of course, by the influence of his uncle, I'm trying to remember all the names now, I don't, but essentially, his uncle influenced him to make a bad decision just so that he could run him out of town. And eventually, the guy was run out of town. And in the process, he ran into some guys who lived in their own kind of world, had their own kind of philosophies that they lived by. And they were going to help this guy come out of his depression and all of that, which I think was cool for a temporary period. All right. But one of the things they tried to now teach him was that philosophy that they called Hakuna Matata. On first impression, Hakuna Matata sounded like a very wonderful philosophy. A life of no worries, no problems, until you get to scrutinize the details of that philosophy. And part of the details is that we can live wherever we like, we can eat whatever we like, we can do whatever we like, and all of those kind of things. Then before you know it, the lion king of the jungle started to eat shrubs. Before you know it, the king of the jungle started to eat worms and all of those kind of things. Because at that moment, the young man has lost his sense of vision. The young man has lost his sense of purpose. So there is really nothing to live for. We're going to do anything that we like, whatever. What's that popular song from the oldies? It's Ke Sera, Serai. Whatever we be, we be. And the future is not ours to all of this kind of talk. So a sense of mission and a sense of purpose is critical. We don't have the time, but that is just to explain a little bit of what that is all about. Then the subject about building relationships. The subject about building relationships. I've often said on so many platforms that as a growing young person and even as an adult, sometimes who you know is more important than what you know. There are a lot of unsuccessful professors. There are a lot of very poor and unfulfilled medical doctors. So when we talk about success, like I said, when you start scrutinizing your definition of success, at some point you're going to realize that as important as your field of practice is, in every field, you're going to find successful people and you're going to find people who are very frustrated and who have failed in those ventures. But one thing that stands out across board is that successful people have some kind of intelligence that enables them to build healthy relationships and connections that make for their success. Whether that relationship is on a personal level for their families to thrive, or on a business level for their corporations or whatever it is, or in a career level for them even to thrive in career spaces. If a person does not understand the simple dynamics of building successful networks and relationships, that person is going to fail. It doesn't matter how much money you give to that person. He's going to find the wrong kind of crowd and blow the cash as quickly as possible. So that is a summary on the subject of relationship when you're going to be talking about building successful teenagers. Number 4 is about devotion. This is a little deeper, but don't get me twisted. I'm not talking about your prayer or morning devotion or the religious stuff that we like to think about. No, devotion in the sense of some sort of separation, some sort of being able to walk away from certain kind of things, because critical to success is, as much as you should know what you want, purpose, relationships, who to hang out with, it's necessary also that you know what you do not want. As much as you know all the ingredients that make for a good soup, you also should know the ones that do not make for that recipe that you're trying to create. Okay, so devotion at that level is about separation, is about isolation from what you're not supposed to be connected with, and things like that. I'm just giving overviews of each of these points. I'll come back finally to settle on number 1, the idea of identity. Number 5 is skills and competencies. Because success is beyond grades, success is beyond academic performance. There are other skills. There are skills for building relationships, for instance, social skills, emotional intelligence skills, executive functioning skills, and we can go on and on to talk about what are the critical competencies. I did a presentation sometime on I think it's I can't remember what the platform is, and I was talking about the 5 competencies that your teenager must have if they are going to succeed. Cultural intelligence, social intelligence. Of course, IQ is the basic, intellectual competence, and quite a number of them. Spiritual intelligence, political intelligence, media intelligence, the ability to sieve information, the ability to filter information and know this is important for my journey and this is not important for the journey that I am about to undertake. But you see, all of this is going to derive from whose identity you have defined for yourself. Whose identity you have defined for yourself. Thank you very much, Peace. Yes, know what you want and what you do not want. It's very, very critical. You cannot, it's not an all comers affair for a successful person. Just the way that the president of a nation is required to sit down in the first few days of assuming office and form a cabinet and form a government is the way that a young person and every individual, as it were, is supposed to understand basically how to form the kind of things that they require to build success. So that the way that a nation or a company, a business is required to run to be able to drive success at an individual level, most, if not all, of those requirements must be in place for success to happen. Number 6 is about setting boundaries. So there must be things that you cannot do if you are going to be a successful person. There must be boundaries. There must be boundaries. All things cannot go, but because we don't have time, that is just an overview. If on so many other parts of my work, if you are able to connect with them, you're going to find details of some of these. But let's stay on the subject of identity for the rest of our time. Building a healthy identity is critical. It is the place to start. You cannot talk about skills. You cannot talk about relationships. You cannot talk about any other part. And like I said, there are a few other things that didn't make it to this slide. You cannot talk about any other components. It's like when you're building a house, you cannot begin to talk about roofing the house. You cannot begin to talk about furnishing the inside of the house if you have not laid a solid foundation. So the foundation, the first level for building and raising a successful young person is about developing a healthy identity. And I'm going to speak to this on 2 levels, which is what is on the screen. The first level is I'm assuming that I may be talking to a young person, I may be talking to a teenager. On the other hand, I'm also talking to a parent. I'm also talking to an adult who is of influence, who is in a place of influence over the life of a young person. So I'm addressing this on those 2 perspectives. So for the young person, it is an understanding of who you are, an understanding of, remember from the definition we talked about self awareness, all right? So it's an understanding of the person, the individual, the self. If our society is very, very religious, and good thing or bad thing, depending on how you decide to implement that. But all your religious figures, Bible heroes, or whatever other text that you read, um, all of those heroes that you want to, and I'm going to make reference to the ones from the Bible, all of those guys that you like to celebrate as your heroes. There's something that runs consistent in all the stories. Maybe not all, but a majority of the stories, there's something that runs consistent through all of them, is that there is always some kind of pre-birth story identifying who they are or who they are supposed to be at their time of birth and what their mission on earth is supposed to be. So whether it is a Moses you're talking about, or a Jacob, or a Samson, or whoever, just name it, there is somewhere in their history where maybe there is this angel talking to the parent, or maybe, in fact, for those of them who do not have those pre-birth stories and finally made it to become one of the heroes of any of those things that you read, You're going to find another kind of story, which is some sort of encounter that they had at some point in their life that redefined their journey. Essential, very, very essential. So you have the likes of your Gideon, who we're not told what happened at his birth and all of those things, but he comes up at some point before he's going to venture into that is it an aha moment or something that turns around, or a turning point in their story. It begins with an identifying message, an identifying encounter, and that message contains what who they are, what their assignment is, what their mission is. It is very, very important because that becomes the compass, that becomes the map for this young person to live their life and to thrive on their journey. It is difficult to derail a person who has a strong sense of identity. Identity is what defines purpose. Purpose is what defines direction. If you do not have a clearly defined sense of identity, we talk a lot about self-esteem, we talk a lot about confidence, we talk a lot about all of those kind of things. If you do not ground a young person on a sense of identity, they are never going to do much with that life. It's identity that tells you your purpose. Your purpose is what tells you your destiny. So that if you are studying, for instance, to become a lawyer, then you have no business in chemistry class. It is not because there is anything wrong with the chemistry lesson. It is because you already know on this part, chemistry is an unnecessary distraction. So you hear things like everything is lawful. Every teenagers are always asking questions: why should I? Why should I not? Is it right? Is it not right? And as a coach for young people, I try to steer that conversation away from whether it is right or not. Well, the question is this essential? Is this essential? I heard Emeka Nobi speak one time, several, it's been a while ago, right? And he was talking about the theory of essentialism. The fact that you can do everything does not necessarily mean you should be doing everything. You should not be everywhere. You should not be on all the trends. You should not be following whatever anybody is following. That philosophy is driven by a sense of purpose. You know where you are going. This is the direction that you're going. And in case you think this is just about, because I mentioned some religious figures, Bible heroes, and all of those things, even in contemporary times, you're not going to find any exceptionally successful person. And caveat, everybody is not going to be a celebrity, everybody is not going to be a public figure or whatever there is. But if you're going to create success, you're going to have to begin from here. If you study some historical figures, even in our contemporary times, successful family names, popular names. I had to first say that everybody is not going to be popular, but the popular ones give us an idea of what it takes to build the life of success. So you want to look at the Hiltons, for instance, the ones that have built the Hilton dynasty, the Hilton hotels, and all of those kind of things. You're going to go to that family and you're going to identify something that is unique about them. Somebody at some point in their history had to sit down and craft a vision for that name, craft an identity, so that when you mention that name, there might be one deviant or so in the family. It always happens, but when you mention the name of that person, you're going to quickly identify that name with a particular set of characteristics. When you mention the Disneys, for instance, the Disney family, it's a very big family. But if you go and check, even before I think it's Walter Disney, the guy that built the famous Disney now, but even before that time, you're going to find in that family a generational kind of project building this identity over time. It is not going to, nobody builds a house by accident. You're not going to build an estate. You're not going to wake up one day and I mistakenly bought a car. I mistakenly, any kind of venture that is going to be successful has to begin with somebody sitting down and taking a pen and a paper and crafting a vision around that venture. You hear of the jetties, the jetty images, and all of those kind of person. You hear of the Trumps of this world. So while it is one Donald Trump that you know, if you go, you're going to see that there was a Trump before Donald Trump who started building something intentionally, deliberately, and then they craft an identity out of that thing. Somebody else can now take it on to another level. You want to mention the Kardashians, you will find the same story. There's a recent, I love to watch lawn tennis, and there's the recent American teenager that won 2023 Grand Slam, whatever. Her name is Coco Gauff. Now she's 19. It is said that she's the youngest American to have won that title after Serena Williams. I was listening to some of the press conferences that she's been granting since that title. And you are going to see something consistent in her upbringing. From the age of 8, somebody intentionally put her in that place where she gained that affection for the sport. And then by the time I followed her story from age 8 to age 13, when she now made it to, competing in the championships, junior championships and stuff like that. Somebody at some point deliberately helped that young lady to craft a vision around that passion. So, when I started, I said one of the biggest challenges we have in this part of the world is that we get to start late. So by the time this person is supposed to be doing great things, they are still struggling with what should be the fundamental principles of life. So it is no surprise, it is not by magic that at 19, she arrives. In fact, the day she won that title, there was a video that was played side by side. The video of her at, I think at age 8 or so, where she was a fan watching other people lift that trophy, watching other people celebrate their victories on the court and all of that. And then a few years later, exactly about 10, 11 years later, she is now the one walking into that identity, walking into the manifestation of something that had been crafted over the years. And so you're not going to sit down, because when I talk about the spiritual dimension, you're not going to sit down and wish these things to come. You're not going to sit down and pray them into existence just out of nowhere. As fantastic as prayer is, as fantastic as all of those things are, there has to be at the beginning, at the foundation, someone carefully crafting an identity, crafting a vision, crafting a mission for this young person. And like I said, not everybody is going to be celebrity, not everybody is going to be public figure. But whether this is critical to your success or not, take it for granted. In Nigeria, we have, several names like that. You have names that you mentioned, and you just know these names for somebody has built a political dynasty with this name. You just know this name for somebody has built a religious, if you like, dynasty with this name. If you're a Christian and you go and study the family of the Haggins, you're going to find 3 generations carrying on the same kinds of identity and doing these. Now, everybody is not going to do the same kind of thing, but essentially, because you have a family with 12 children, if you like, and all of them are going to manifest in different kind of ways, but all around building a certain kind of vision, a certain kind of structure, a certain kind of family. The tragedy of the 21st century is that we have an abundance of information, but nobody is really going to teach you about you. You can Google every other thing on earth. You can just punch your keypads and answers will come up. But when it comes to the subject of defining who you are, nobody is going to make that revelation for you. Nobody is going to, that answer is not on Google. It requires a careful process, all right, to unravel who you are, what it is that you are about, what it is that you are designed and capable to achieve and fulfill, what it is that is within your realities, and even the ones that seemingly are not within your realities, within what you can strive for what you can achieve in your lifetime. So you have all of this knowledge, but not everything is for you. Like I said at some point, everything is all things are lawful, but not everything is expedient for the life of success of you as an individual, of your child as a young person. So that decision to sit down and walk the process of identity discovery is a journey that if your young person is going to be successful, they are going to have to make that journey. The second part, as I begin to round up, because I know my time is up, the second part of the conversation is the understanding of who you are raising. Now, if I was talking to you as a parent, the understanding of who you are raising. Remember that I said that before the birth of some of the figures that you respect and idolize were some kind of pre-birth story, encounter, whatever, revelation that is foretold about who this person is supposed to be, who and what they are supposed to do. But there seems to be some kind of disconnect when parents start raising teenagers. Because between the time the child is born and when they are teenagers, you as a parent have also grown at least 12 years, at least 13 years, thereabout. And so there seems to be some kind of generational gap. So you want to begin to treat the young person the way you were treated when you were growing up. Flash, news flash, time has changed. Okay, so the younger generation is going to find new and sometimes different ways to express their identities. And what we find is that once these expressions begin to show up, some parents who again have not been made conscious of these processes begin to have issues with those expressions. So you have these phone wielding, internet surfing, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, that you as a parent, you're now finding difficult to connect with. There's been a generational gap. Something is missing. You want them to behave like you, but they are not you, essentially. You want you parents that every Nigerian parent, if I am not mistaken, have we tell their child the story of how they trekked from Ojuelegba to K2, or how you trek from Eleme to Stadium Road, wherever your city is. You hear all of those stories, and then you want to kind of transfer those experiences. It's not the same. It's like you should go and trek with the Israelites. They were on foot and crossed the Red Sea. So you too, we should bring that kind of example and present to you. If your examples to your children are going to make sense to them, it's most likely not going to happen. So there's this generational gap where, of necessity, as a parent, you would have to decide to intentionally understand what is going on in the generation of your child, in the generation of your teenager, and see what are the quirks, what are the peculiarities, what are the challenges, because every generation is going to have their own kind of challenges that are peculiar to them. And if you are not connected on that level, you're going to lose your teenager. You're going to lose your teenager to their peers. The so-called peer pressure that we like to accuse for the delinquencies of young people, it's actually partly a disconnection from those who are supposed to be responsible for parenting them, mentoring them, teaching them, and guiding them. Because this is your generation, and then you kind of like throw away the baby and the bathwater because you don't understand the entire generation. That is one part of the disconnect. So you have to make conscious effort to understand who this person is, who this identity, who this nation is, who this company is, who this business is that you are raising. Imagine hiring a CEO of your business who knows nothing about what you are doing in that business. It doesn't matter which school they graduated from, they're probably going to run that business aground. So the first thing that is required is that you understand the terrain, you understand the business, you understand the lingo, you understand the market, you understand all of those things that we like to say in business terms. But this time around, you're dealing with a human being. I always say to parents is whatever mistakes you commit with that child, is going to be a living mistake. You know how they say that there's a living sacrifice. You're going to have a living mistake walking on two legs in your house. And finally, as part of that conversation, also about understanding who you're raising, is that a lot of times young people are clashing with their parents because they have their own individual differences. And I'm talking personality differences. I'm talking temperamental differences. So you were raised as a parent. When you were growing up, you were this quiet, obedient child. By the way, we have a very weird definition of what obedience is supposed to be, based on our traditional understandings of those terms. Okay, so you were raised as this very quiet person, and now you are raising some boisterous, energetic, outgoing person. Somewhere along the line, you expect that that person is going to mirror your personality. That person is going to mirror your ideologies. That person is going to mirror your likes and your dislikes and your penchants. You're not the guy that likes a lot of friends. You're not the guy that likes a lot of company. And then you are raising this person who is a super extrovert, and they thrive only when they have all of these company around them, when they have all of these human and physical energy in their space. And you're not making that, you're not letting that happen. You're stifling that because you're in your idea of who a responsible teenager should be. It has to be this certain kind of way. They have to, the church where you were raised, they had this way where they did things. And like I said, as powerful as those things can be, if you do not take your time to understand what the individual differences, the personality differences, the temperamental differences between who you are raising and yourself, chances are somebody is going to struggle. And then where there are multiple young people in the family, you have different kinds of children, or more than one, more than two, three, four. Chances are also that all of them are not going to manifest the same kind of temperaments. All of them are not going to manifest the same kind of personalities. And so those individual tiny little tweaks and brand differences, if you like, are very critical to pay attention to if you want to raise a successful young person. Let me try and round up this talk by talking about missions, values, and convictions. So I'm going to stop here, even though there are a few more things down the line. But why are they very, very important? Why is it important for you to define for your young person, or as a young person, submit to the process, defining mission, defining values, defining conviction? I didn't speak with Emeka Nobis before coming on the show this evening, but you see that story he shared at the beginning of this presentation tonight about young people who, as fate will have it, have lost their lives, wasted their lives. Uh, that is a car crash. That is an accident. A lot of persons have wasted their lives being where they had no business to be. There's one movement in town. Um, there's one gathering in town. I wanted to use the word fraternity, even though the word is not a bad word. But every time you say fraternity, it's often interpreted as meaning, the negative things that it can mean, cultism and all of that. And that is part of the conversation. But you see, even among the good things, there are certain good places that your child should probably not have any business with. But they are not going to be able to make that decision. They're not going to be able to make that distinction if they don't have a definition of what values, of what convictions, of what mission that their life is supposed to be about. So, if this conversation is going on between parents and young people, one of the things that's going to happen is everybody has a common purpose. Everybody has that um, ability to rally around, ability to collaborate around the same purpose, the same assignment, the same unite around the same objectives. Okay, so it becomes easier to build a relationship, any kind of relationship, because most times we try to build the parent-child relationship based on just the authority manifestations of that relationship, forgetting that, like any other kind of relationship where vision is not clearly established, everybody is going to cast off restraint. Where there is no vision in a company, assuming this is a business that you are building, the bosses and the rest of the members of staff are constantly going to have issues because somebody is going to do something that nobody really understands. Where are we coming from and where are we going to? So collaboration. My child is not cooperating. My child is a very there's nothing yet to rally around. There is nothing yet to come together and pursue. Then open dialogue. Open dialogue. I see when young people, children start growing into adolescence and teenagers, of course, naturally they become a little more secretive, puberty, and all of those things that are happening. But if all your conversation with your teenage daughter is about who sent them text message yesterday night and who were they talking with on the phone, you have become an investigator. You become a criminal investigation officer around their life. That is going to harm the communication between you and that teenager naturally. If every time you are talking with your teenager, you are nosing for something, you are looking for something to find between you and that child, you're looking for trouble. It's not that you want to have any conversation with the child, you are just looking for what to find that went wrong. Meanwhile, nothing really has to go wrong. But the reason is because there is really nothing else to talk about in the relationship. If there was something else to talk about, your meeting with your teenager, whether you do it in the morning, whether it's on your way to school, whether it's at meal times, dining table, kitchen, anywhere, where there is a vision, where there are values, where there are convictions, where there is a mission, there is always something to always talk about. So you wouldn't really run out of what to do with your teenagers. You wouldn't really run out of what to say or what to discuss with your teenagers, aside from looking for what happened and what did not happen. And that's why the relationship is scattering. That's why you're fighting with your teenagers. So you want to have a healthier dialogue, you want to have a healthier relationship with your teenager. These are important points to factor into your parenting journey. These are important points to factor into your leadership journey. And perhaps you're even raising a young person that is not your biological child. I've had cases to do with people who is one house help you brought from the village, because again, our environment has not really put some streamline around what age of people should be employed as house helps or not. But you're probably raising somebody who is not your biological child, and this young person has their own peculiarities, their own challenges, their own journeys, their own identities, and you're not helping them figure out or unravel all of those things. You're going to have challenges communicating with that person. The communication is always going to hit bad network. The thing is always going to fail. It's not going to work properly. And then you struggle with having somebody with a sense of responsibility. Go back to our definition of who a successful person is. There's nothing to be responsible for. You're expecting responsibility from somebody you have not given any responsibility. Sometimes I wonder how we manufacture some of the things we do, but all of a sudden the guy is 17, all of a sudden the guy is 18, and you are shocked how that 16-year-olds cannot do any simple thing because they were raised in one fine estate in River State. It is not, it is not going to work. It is not going to work. It's because at an early stage, I just shared an example of a 19-year-old who is winning Grand Slam titles. At her level, everybody is not going to win that. But at some other level, your child should be accountable and responsible for some level of results. And I'm not talking about academic results. I'm not talking about maths and English and all those kind of things. But at some level, a young person is supposed to be responsible for some levels of results, some level of success, some levels of delivery. And that can only happen when they have been given a sense of vision, a sense of mission, a collection of values and things that they believe in, things that they are running towards. Their life has a meaning and is going in a particular direction. Skills development is one of the components, but of course, it is your identity and your mission that determines what kind of skills you should be building. If your identity is that of a fish, you should go and start building skills around swimming. If your identity is that of a horse, you should go and start building skills around racing. and things like that. So it makes it easier to answer certain questions that come up in the journey when you have established the subject of identity, the subject of personality, understanding who this person is, why they are here, what they are supposed to be doing. So that's pretty much the conversation I want to have with us tonight. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for having me here. Um, all right, so that's it. That's it for today. Thank you very much, Uchemeka. I don't know if you are there. Please, I am done.
I'm here. Thank you so much for this great conversation. Thank you so much. So I can remove yours. Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chebuzie. I
Thank you, sir.
wish we had a
Mm.
lot of time. Maybe we can take one or two questions because I will also be going live again with someone else at 7 p.m. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
have questions, please can we ask our questions so that Chedoze can answer our questions tonight? Do we have questions? Do we have questions that he can answer? Okay. Questions, guys. Are there questions that you want to ask Chedoze right now? Okay, blessing Murray, you're just joining. Thank you. All right,
Thank you,
guys. I know
blessing.
that you got great value so far from what Chedoze was talking about. Just to help his message get to as many individuals, just tap the share button beneath the screen. There is a share button beneath the screen. Just tap it so that other individuals can enjoy what you have enjoyed so far this evening. All right, tap it and share the live stream to your audience. Okay, guys, if you have questions, ask so that Chidoze can answer. We have like Chidoze, I can see at your back, your recording gears.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, I was actually walking
Amazing.
before now, and I'm going to continue after this session. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Great, great, great work you're doing.
Thank you very
Guys,
much.
got questions? Any question whatsoever, or all that he spoke about made a lot of sense. It made sense to me. But if you have questions, please do share the questions so that Chidoze can answer. Amazing stuff. I mean, some of the things they have shared, I use them. I use them. I mean, I remember people. The thing is that when the Bible says people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, it's absolutely correct.
Mm, mm,
Um, Before getting married, I used to attend marriage sessions, read books on marriage. And now that I have kids, I'm reading things I have to do with raising them, how to speak to them, empowering words, affirmations, and a whole lot of stuff. And I like the fact that my kids do not have a morbid fear of me. When I come
true.
back home, they relate with me, they connect with me respectfully, they
Mm,
play, they joke, all sorts of things, and it helps in building their self-esteem. And when
yeah.
daddy says stop doing that, that is wrong for
They
you,
know when to stop.
so they know when to stop. So it's beautiful how they are growing, and I'm fascinated by how awesome that they are. I must tell you the absolute truth. So guys, I think there's no other question that is coming up. So I want to thank Theodosia for this great opportunity to. Okay, one question is here. How do we handle differences as a teenager with our parents due to identity definition?
Ah, okay. Um, okay. Hello, peace. I'm not sure that the difference is due to identity definition. Um, so maybe there's something else. I really am not sure that the reason you're having a difference with. I'm assuming that this person asking this question is asking maybe as a young person because that's the way the question is framed. How do we handle differences as a teenager with our parent due to identity definition? So because the definition as much as I have said is it's the responsibilities on both sides. There is a part of that definition that is that has to come from the parents. There is also a part of that definition that has to come from you as an individual, because assuming somebody was being raised without their parents, of course, they're going to have to move on with their life. And so when that definition has been made, if you have gone through that process and you know who you are and you know what you're supposed to be doing, then the question would be about communication. The question would be about the conversations. Like Mekanobi said, where children are not afraid to relate with their parents, then anything can be discussed. But where there is the fear element in the relationship between the parent and the child, of course, I can imagine that that communication is going to have issues. So it is that problem that you need to solve, the problem of how do I begin to express myself more freely. There's something that trended on Twitter a few days ago where a girl asked her parents for, I think it was an iPhone or something, and the father went ballistic on her. And so that kind of a situation is unfortunate. But then you have to fashion out ways, submit yourself to training, submit yourself to mentorship, learn how to communicate with people who are in authority over you, in this case, your parents, and also learn to make some trade offs because there are certain levels of there are certain kinds of things you cannot do as long as you're still under your parents. So if you're trying to manifest, quote and unquote, what you have defined for yourself on within the parameters of another man's government, then you have to learn negotiation. You have to learn how to appeal to that authority, in this case your parents. You have to learn how to appeal to them. You have to learn how to strike a win-win conversation, essentially negotiating with your parents. And that is a skill on its own for communication, assuming that your parents are not in this picture. But essentially, um, another way to go about it is to try to bring them into the conversation where they understand you know this is what is going on and this is why what is happening. And so together, essentially, because you're going to need their help in forging this thing that you have defined for yourself. So you want to get their buy-in also in that whole conversation. So two things, like I said, the first is deal with the relationship issue if there is a fear factor in you communicating with your parents, and then get them to buy in on this definition of yours that you're talking about.
Thank you so much, Chedozie. I think that's the much we can do now because I have to go live again with someone at 7 p.m.
Thank you
So
very
do
much.
well
Thank you so
to Chedozie. He's on Facebook. Follow him on Facebook and connect to him, and he will be able to answer many of your questions that you've got. If we are not able to answer it tonight. Okay, so follow him on Facebook. His name is Chiedozie Eze.
Mhm.
Chiedozie Eze is his name. Chiedozie Eze is his name, and connect to him. Thank you so much, Chiedozie, and good
Thank you,
night
sir.
to
Thank you for all you do.
amazing time tonight. God bless you. If you're in
Yeah,
Lagos,
you too.
please be at our event at the Pistis Center, Maryland, this Saturday at 9 a.m. in the morning for Dominating Business in Lagos. Thank you, everyone, and good night, and God bless you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.